afternoon, I'm Katie Wilson and you are watching AnewZ. Let's see your headlines. President Trump claims monumental damage inflicted on Iranian nuclear sites, with Iran condemning the strikes and vowing retaliation. The UN Security Council meet as Guterres urges a ceasefire in a return to negotiations. 20 killed in a suicide bombing at a church in Damascus, a first since the fall of Assad. President Trump is claiming success after the latest US offensive against Iran's nuclear program. As damage assessments continue, questions emerge about local power stability and future escalation.
President Donald Trump claimed on Truth Social that American airstrikes caused monumental damage to Iran's nuclear infrastructure, emphasizing that the most severe destruction occurred deep underground, writing "bullseye," though official US assessments of the operation's impact are still ongoing. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed the strikes damaged tunnel entrances at the Isfahan nuclear site, a facility that stores much of Iran's enriched uranium underground. Director General Rafael Grossi told the UN Security Council that the targeted tunnels were indeed used for storing enriched material. Iran has yet to disclose what measures it will take to secure its nuclear assets. 7 B-2 bombers took off from the United States and flew an 18-hour mission to Iran, where they dropped 14 bunker-buster bombs on underground nuclear sites, including Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. They returned to American soil after carrying out a long-range strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer. The aircrafts landed near Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called the strikes against Iran nuclear facilities as incredible and overwhelming success.
The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Satellite imagery revealed at least one crater at the Natanz enrichment site, though Iranian authorities have not released their own damage assessment. In contrast, prior Israeli operations destroyed surface structures and cut power to the site.
Iran has condemned US strikes on its nuclear sites and vowed retaliation. Tehran also plans legal action against the UN nuclear watchdog. Our correspondent Turaj Shiralilu reports from Tehran.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has strongly condemned U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites in Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow in central Iran on Sunday. In a statement released by the Foreign Ministry, the minister said that the United States, as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, has committed a grave violation of the UN Charter. Foreign Minister Araghchi said that the events this day today will have everlasting consequences in the region, as Iran has vowed to retaliate against any attack on its nuclear sites. He also said that in accordance with the UN Charter, Iran will retaliate and respond to the US attacks, taking and reserving its right of retaliation. Earlier today, Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, in a statement, said that Iran will sue the IAEA, International Energy Atomic Agency, for its lack of action in condemning Israeli attacks and the US attacks on Iran's nuclear sites, which are under monitoring of the United Nations. It is expected that today's attacks will have spiraling effects and increase of tension in the region, as Iran has already threatened that it will retaliate by attacking US bases and its interests within reach. Turaj Shiralilu reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
The International Atomic Energy Agency has reported of a likelihood of significant damage to Iran's Fordow uranium enrichment plant following US airstrikes.
The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, has said that the US bombing of Iran's nuclear sites likely caused significant damage to the underground areas of the Fordow uranium enrichment plant. The United States joined the conflict between Iran and Israel and dropped the biggest conventional bombs in its arsenal on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities in efforts to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. The IAEA convened an emergency meeting in Vienna to address the aftermath of US airstrikes.
At this time, no one, including the IAEA, is in a position to have fully assessed the underground damage at Fordow. Given the explosive payload utilized and the extreme vibration-sensitive nature of centrifuges, very significant damage is expected to have occurred.
Following the strike, Iran has informed the IAEA that here was no increase in off-site radiation levels at all 3 sites. Grossi called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and urged them to return to negotiations to achieve the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire a nuclear weapon. What remains uncertain is the status of Iran's stock of enriched uranium, particularly its more than 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to up to 60% purity, a short step from the roughly 90% that is weapons grade. According to IAEA calculations, further enrichment is enough to produce up to 9 nuclear weapons, though Iran says its intentions are peaceful and it does not seek atomic bombs.
A new wave of geopolitical uncertainty is gripping global markets as Iran signals it may disrupt one of the world's most vital energy routes, the Strait of Hormuz. The move underscores deepening hostilities with the US, but energy analysts warn the fallout could go well beyond the Gulf.
Iran's parliament has approved a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil shipping lane, in response to US airstrikes on its nuclear facilities. While the proposal reflects Tehran's growing defiance, any final decision rests with the Supreme National Security Council, which reports to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway separating Iran from Oman and the United Arab Emirates, but its geopolitical significance far outweighs its size. Connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and open ocean, it serves as the main maritime route for oil and gas exports from Gulf countries. Often called the world's most critical energy choke point, the strait handles roughly 20% of global oil consumption and a quarter of the world's liquefied natural gas trade. Major producers like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Qatar, and the UAE rely heavily on the passage to export crude and fuels. Data from analytics firm Vortexa confirms that between 18 and 21 million barrels have transited the strait daily between 2022 and May 2025. The stakes are high. Any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz could send oil prices soaring, destabilize global energy markets, and risk igniting direct conflict. That risk briefly flared this week. Following the US strikes, Brent crude surged over 3%, peaking at $81.40 a barrel, the highest since January. West Texas Intermediate also jumped, topping $78.40 before settling slightly lower. Market analysts say further price hikes are likely, driven by fears of Iranian retaliation, especially involving the strait. As the conflict deepens, attention has turned toward whether Iran will follow through on its threats. Historically, Tehran has threatened to shut the waterway during periods of tension, but has stopped short of doing so. However, this time, Iran's Press TV reports that Parliament has reached a consensus. Still, the move awaits formal approval from the top Security Council and Supreme Leader Khamenei, leaving the threat real, but not yet realized. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned Iran against closing the strait, calling it a suicidal move that could rally international opposition against Tehran.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has warned that any Iranian move to close the Strait of Hormuz would be dangerous and destabilising. Speaking ahead of a meeting with EU foreign ministers, Kallas said such a step would not be good for anybody. Her remarks come after Iran's Press TV reported that the country's Supreme National Security Council is weighing whether to shut down the key waterway. EU ministers are also expected to address broader developments across the region, including the conflict in Gaza and the state of relations with Israel.
Good morning, everybody. Of course, we are discussing Middle East in broader sense, also after also Gaza and Article 2 of our association agreement with Israel. We have done the review. The review is ready. All the member states have it, and we will discuss further. What to read out of this and what will we do with this.
The UN Security Council met on Sunday to discuss US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites as Russia, China and Pakistan pushed for a ceasefire resolution. The draft, which does not name the US or Israel, condemns attacks on Iran's nuclear sites. The US is expected to oppose the resolution. UN Chief Antonio Guterres warned the strikes mark a perilous turn and urged urgent negotiations.
Director General of the International Atomic Energy. The bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities by the United States marks a perilous turn in a region that is already reeling. We must act immediately and decisively to halt the fighting and return to serious, sustained negotiations on the Iran nuclear program. The Non-Proliferation Treaty is a cornerstone of international peace and security. Iran must fully respect it. The United Nations stands ready to support any and all efforts toward a peaceful resolution. But peace cannot be imposed. It must be chosen.
Tensions between Israel and Iran have reached a new high, with both sides launching strikes in a dramatic escalation. Israel targeted multiple military sites across Iran on Sunday, while Tehran responded with missile attacks towards Israeli territory. Here's the latest on the rapidly developing situation.
Israel carried out a series of airstrikes on military targets across Iran on Sunday, targeting satellite facilities, radar systems in Kermanshah and Hamadan, and missile infrastructure. A surface-to-air missile launcher in Tehran and the Parchin military complex southeast of the capital were also hit, according to the Israel Defense Forces. In response, Iran activated its air defense systems over Tehran, with local media reporting the interception of hostile targets in the capital. Explosions were reported in Tabriz and Isfahan, with videos showing plumes of smoke rising into the sky. Blasts were also heard in Isfahan on Sunday. Early Monday, Iran launched multiple missiles toward Israel, reportedly aiming at Ben Gurion Airport, research centers, and command posts. Sirens sounded across Tel Aviv, sending millions into bomb shelters. The exchange marks a sharp escalation in hostilities, with both nations on high alert.
Over to Syria now. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for an attack on a church in Damascus on Sunday, but according to the Syrian Interior Ministry, the attacker was linked to the jihadist group Islamic State. At least 20 people were killed and many others were injured after an attacker targeted a packed church. It is the first such attack since the government transition.
At least 20 people were killed and more than 50 were injured when a blast occurred at the Mar Elias Church in the Dwayla area of Damascus, according to Syria's health ministry. This marks the first suicide bombing in Damascus since former President Bashar al-Assad was removed from power by Islamist-led forces in December last year. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. According to the Interior Ministry, the attacker was linked to Islamic State. Officials say the bomber opened fire inside the church before detonating his explosives. However, a security source revealed another suspect was involved in the plot, though only one carried out the bombing. Witnesses described scenes of panic and criticised the government for failing to protect citizens.
We started to hear gunfire outside the church for almost 2 minutes. It was intermittent at first. Then the shooting moved to the churchyard and eventually inside the church. Suddenly, 2 people entered with explosive belts and detonated them inside the church.
The United Nations and United States special envoys, along with foreign ministries from numerous countries, condemned the attack. calling for unity against terrorism and expressing condolences to the victims' families. Authorities say churches have been targeted before, and even Islamic State attacked Shiite sites during Assad's rule. Meanwhile, the country's new leadership has promised to protect religious minorities who remain vulnerable to extremist violence.
Kiev suffered a brutal overnight raid, killing at least 10 people and leaving many injured. The strike hit a residential building where the entrance was destroyed and residents feared trapped as rescue teams rushed to respond in what officials described as one of the most severe attacks in recent months.
Kiev was shaken by a large-scale overnight missile and drone assault on Monday, killing more than a dozen people and tens were injured, according to Ukraine's state emergency service. It hit the Shevchenkivsky district, where the entrance to a residential high-rise was completely destroyed. At least 4 people were killed there, with others feared trapped beneath the rubble. Explosions and kamikaze drones were heard from around 1 a.m., with the attack lasting more than 3 hours as drones and missiles pounded several parts of the capital.
Before going to sleep, I prayed to God. God, give me a chance to fall asleep and wake up peacefully. Please help me wake up today so that I wouldn't have to go to the bomb shelter.
Damage was reported and fires erupted across districts including Podilsky and Solomiansky, where a 4-storied office building was left in flames. In the wider Kiev region, a 68-year-old woman was killed in Bila Tserkva. Damage was also reported in Bucha and on an entrance to a metro station in Kiev. Emergency teams continue to work across affected areas with ongoing rescue and recovery operations.
Wildfires and desperate evacuations. Greece's island of Chios was hit by raging fires, causing chaos on Sunday as flames raced towards homes and farms. Firefighters battled through the night to contain the blaze.
Fierce flames and towering smoke swept across parts of Greece's Chios island on Sunday as more than 100 firefighters battled a fast-moving wildfire driven by unforgiving winds. The blaze began around midday in central Chios and rapidly tore through forest and farmland, advancing on 3 fronts. Warehouses were damaged, homes came under threat, and at least 16 settlements were evacuated as a precaution. The most dangerous front pushed toward the coastal town of Vrontados, where crews raced to stop the fire from reaching residential areas.
If I wasn't here, my house would have burned down. With a bucket and a small hose, I managed to extinguish the fire. The good thing is that my yard, my house and my land were clean. You see, there is nothing on the ground. Despite this, my greenhouse was half burned.
On the ground, more than 140 firefighters and dozens of forest commandos worked through the night with support from 15 fire engines. From the skies, helicopters and water-bombing planes made repeated passes until sunset, painting the smoke with streaks of hope. Local authorities have now called in reinforcements from across the mainland, with more crews arriving on Monday. An arson investigation has also been launched. Wildfires are no stranger to Greece, but this year's blazes have come earlier than expected, raising concern among local authorities.
Tensions are escalating sharply after US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran's leadership has issued strong warnings, signaling potential retaliation against American targets. As missile attacks continue in the region, people are evacuating through the Astara state border crossing between Iran and Azerbaijan in increasing numbers. Our correspondent Zainab Farajzadeh has more.
Behind me is the Astara border, and today more and more people are crossing over from Iran into Azerbaijan, unsure of what comes next. We are just meters away from Iranian territory, and the tension is rising. After United States strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, Tehran's military now says it considers American targets fair game, not just Israeli ones. A senior commander warns that the US should expect heavy consequences, while Iran Iran's new military chief, Major General Amir Hatami, promised a decisive response. Iran's supreme leader has also weighed in, calling Israel's bombing campaign a big crime and a big mistake. The statement came just hours after a missile was launched at Israel. Here in Astara, we have seen a steady stream of Iranians, some with families, some alone, quietly crossing the border. They won't speak on camera, but their urgency says enough. Meanwhile, President Trump will meet with his national security team on Monday to discuss next steps.
A press conference was held today at the Iranian embassy in Baku. Representatives answered journalist questions about the ongoing regional situation and recent developments.
Today, a press conference was held at the Iranian embassy in Azerbaijan. Said Jafar Aghaei, charged d'affaires of the embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Azerbaijan, responded to questions from journalists on a range of issues. On the potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, Aghaei stated that any decision regarding this matter would be made by Iran's supreme leadership. Regarding concerns over radiation risks following attacks on nuclear facilities, he noted that the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran is conducting investigations and will provide further information. In response to a question about ensuring the safety of vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, Aghaei said that this question should be addressed to other parties, not Iran. Finally, when asked about the ongoing conflict with Israel, Aghaei cited a statement from Iran's Foreign Minister Arakchi saying, "If Israel stops the war, we will also stop. Iran supports peace." This concludes the updates from the press conference. And it should be noted that for several days, Azerbaijan has been ensuring the safe passage of Iranian and the foreign nationals seeking to leave the country through the Astara checkpoint on the Azerbaijan-Iran border.
Azerbaijan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement expressing deep concern over the recent US attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. In the statement, Azerbaijan calls on all parties to exercise restraint and prevent further escalation. It emphasizes that dialogue and diplomacy should be prioritized to resolve the situation peacefully. Kazakhstan's foreign ministry has issued a statement expressing concern over the recent escalation in the Middle East. The statement emphasizes the importance of diplomatic dialogue and calls for the prevention of further destabilization. Kazakhstan underscored the need to resolve all disagreements, including nuclear-related issues, through the negotiations in line with the UN Charter. The ministry called on all parties to work towards an agreement aimed at preventing the increase of nuclear weapons and ensuring the security of states committed to non-proliferation. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze says his government remains committed to joining the European Union by 2030. Responding to criticism from European officials, he said recent statements reflect a deep value crisis within the EU bureaucracy. Kobakidze expressed hope that Europe will overcome its current economic, democratic and institutional challenges. On the topic of Georgia's visa-free regime, he called for an end to what he described as political blackmail and stressed that Georgia continues to maintain open communication with its European partners. That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.